light the flicker. We get lost in the crowd, it's getting thicker. We get away from the drinks and chatter. Haven't said a word, but it doesn't matter. Feel the air get thinner. Standing in a blurry dream. No one else can see us. Live your life within the moment. And don't go wait until the morning. You never know when it is over. All that I know is we'll get older. So let us dance this night away.
What's up, guys? Welcome to another episode of the Professional Wingman podcast. I am your host. I am your wingman, Thomas Edwards. And here at the Professional Wingman, we are dedicated these days to helping high-achieving entrepreneurs and professional men learn how to overcome imposter syndrome so they can go out and live extraordinary lives filled with fulfillment, impact, and purpose. And today, we're going to talk about happiness. We're going to talk about if happiness is actually worth chasing for, and if it isn't, what should we be chasing for, if anything? And why we're talking about this is because I spent the last 4.5 years studying happiness. I studied the science, the keys to being happy, everything about what people say happiness is supposed to be. And how do you experience it in life? And here's the thing. It's true that happiness is something that's essential for our lives, but is it that important? Is it that important to be happy? Now, if you're a high-performing entrepreneur, you need to listen to this because there's a part of you that's chasing something and you may not know what it is. And if you're being distracted or being told that being happy is what you should be pursuing, maybe it's causing some conflict. Maybe you want to be happy and you don't even know how to do that, right? Like you're creating success in the entrepreneurial world, you're creating success in your professional career, but when you go home, when you shut that laptop off, where is your happiness? And that might be something you're struggling with. Maybe you're asking yourself, do I have the capacity to create an extraordinary life that is filled with joy and purpose and meaning and impact? Maybe you don't know if you're capable of doing that. Maybe you don't know if you're good enough, right? This is all key elements of imposter syndrome. And imposter syndrome is very closely tied to happiness. In fact, I feel like, and I personally have gone through this, when I have had different levels of growth in my life, in my business, in my marriage, in my physical health, the question always comes up, am I good enough? Can I sustain this? And then closely tied to that is, am I happy? Am I satisfied? Right? All these words that we ask ourselves and check in, and we may not be sure. So in this episode, we're going to talk about happiness. Is it worth chasing after? And if it is, how do we chase it? And if it's not worth it, what do we actually chase after instead that can allow us to live a life of purpose and meaning? And this is something that if you are a high-performing professional, this is something that is constantly going through your mind, especially as you continue to create levels of success in your professional career or in your business. So when I work with my clients, and I work with clients who run the spectrum of happiness. And what that means is their definition of happiness just spans a wide spectrum. For some people, it means a certain thing, and for others, it means something completely different. And what I've learned is the common thing is their happiness, whatever that definition is, whatever that experience is for them, that happiness doesn't last. And it actually lasts quicker than I think most of them actually realize. And so I spent a lot of time figuring out why. Why is this happening? For the most successful people in the world, why is their moment of happiness so fleeting? Why does it go away? Well, when my clients unlock, when my clients are lacking true happiness, right? I'm looking at my notes here. It's because they lack one fundamental thing that is key, I believe, to living an extraordinary life, which is fulfillment. And you might be asking me at this point, like, Thomas, isn't happiness and fulfillment the same thing? Let's break it down. I personally don't believe that. I think happiness and fulfillment are two very distinct things. And I'll share what my perspective of the two are and see if you agree with this. So happiness, and I wrote it down, is fleeting. It's short term. It's often derived by material possessions, acquisitions, or achievements. And typically, and the way you can indicate, like kind of get a gauge of how happy you are is, when you are able to get more money or get a promotion or buy something that you really like or you wanted, that definitely has made you feel happy. And how long did that happiness last? I mean, I remember back in 2020, I ended up getting a Maserati Quattroporte. It was one of the most amazing cars I've ever owned up to this point. And it was a total dream, owning my own exotic car. And I could tell you, after 6 months, that feeling started to wear on me. It wasn't as excited, especially when it was time for maintenance and upkeep and all the things that comes with maintaining any car, let alone an exotic. And so it doesn't really last as long as we think it is, right? We could actually probably spend more time becoming enamored with the thing that we want. And that, makes us feel a certain way. And that probably lasts longer than the actual experience of having the thing. Whereas fulfillment, on the other hand, is derived from a deeper sense of purpose, a contribution to others, for example. And it leads to a more sustainable state of contentment. Right. And it is, we don't use the word content often because I think in today's world, being content almost comes with an air of like complacency, an air of, it almost doesn't even sound like you're happy because you're content. But contentment, what comes with that is peace. And if you're a high performer, I'm sure there's a lot going on in your world that doesn't feel peaceful. And the conflict that's happening up here and sometimes here, that's all we want, is that peace, that contentment. So there is the difference. Happiness, fleeting, it doesn't really last as long, and it's usually derived by things outside of us, whereas fulfillment is derived by something of a deeper meaning, deeper purpose, something that's internal from within. And those things last a lifetime. If I were to say, hey, think of an experience that you just felt really proud of, or you felt really happy outside of your work. If you were to close your eyes and think about that, what comes to mind? Is it something with your family? Is it something in your own personal life? Maybe it's going to the movies. Maybe it's date night with your wife, a family trip, hopping in the pool with your kids. Maybe it's a workout. Maybe, someone challenged you and you had a great workout. Maybe for some of you, it's video games. But whatever is bringing a smile to your face, chances are it's not so much a material and external thing. It is an experience that has created deeper meaning, internal purpose within you. And so the reason why this is important is because when you think about those things, it's not so much the experience that matters, but how you felt and how you feel that matters. And here's how emotions play a really significant role in this. The caliber of our lives is directly linked to the emotions that we experience regularly. So if we experience frustration, anger, blame, guilt, shame, we're going to look around in our world and see that reflected to us. But if we're living a life that is filled with peace and freedom and joy, contentment, prosperity, purpose, meaning, all of a sudden our world looks completely different. And when we feel that, our bodies do a lot of amazing things, right? We think about, how does water have emotion, right? Well, we are made of water. And when we feel a certain way chemically, we then respond to the world, or the world responds to us in that interesting dynamic. And when we experience positive emotions like joy, passion, peace, it actually does lead to a higher quality of life. How we view the world, it influences our thoughts, our feelings, and our behaviors, as opposed to if we were thinking heavier negative emotions like fear, anxiety, distrust, depression. All these things diminish our well-being and our perception of the world that we see. And so emotions play a really big role. And we're going to talk about different ways that you can help level up your emotions, so that way you can level up your perception of the world and how the world will return the favor, so to speak. And one key thing that I do with all of my clients when they come into working together is, when we kind of play this game of life, so to speak, I have them understand who they are. We call it your character. It's kind of like when you play a game, and whether you play games or not is irrelevant, right? If you like board games, you have to pick oftentimes a totem or a certain character. Like Monopoly's had different totems. You might have to pick a different color, right? There's some association to what you pick, whether it's on a board game or if you're playing a video game, you have to choose a character. So the Super Mario Brothers, back in the day, it was either you can only choose Mario, right? If it was a 2-player game, then you also could be Luigi, right? But in any game, there is a character that goes on some type of quest. And that character could be, like I said, that totem. But you have to understand who that character is. What qualities do they exude? What are their strengths? What are their shadows? I like to call them weaknesses, but there could be things that, could be exposed based on emotional reactivity. So what are those? And the more aware you become, the more you actually have a sense of being able to control the direction of your life. And so and I believe each person that I work with has everything they need to be successful, right? They're uniquely equipped based on their character to be able to win the game of life. Otherwise, there'd be no purpose in them participating in the game. So being able to have the awareness to understand how to use these gifts, not just for yourself, but also in service to others, makes a huge, huge difference in your path to fulfillment. And I often find that when I talk with my clients, our collective purpose is usually found by aligning our gifts with our ability to contribute to others, otherwise known as being of service. And I've learned in my personal life over the past several years that when I'm in what I would refer to as the highest service, something that is to God, that's my higher power, and I'm able to contribute and give it to other people, I experience great fulfillment. This is part of the reason why I love coaching. I love being able to see clients meet and exceed their potential. And I love seeing it in real time. There's nothing like seeing a client reach to the level that they thought was once impossible. That for me is the ultimate service, because now they get to go out and they get to impact the world, and the people that they get impacted by, it just creates this ripple effect. And so being of service to others for me provides great fulfillment. It's why I've been doing what I've been doing for the past 15 plus years. So I have every client go through, it's a customized assessment, and it allows them to become aware of what I talked about previously, your character. And there's 4 dimensions of your character. There's your ego, which is essentially the part of you that you're essentially born with to some degree, but gets nurtured over time. And that typically is run through automated programming built in your brain over subsequent years of your life. There are some strengths and weaknesses there. And then the second dimension is your soul. this is the voice that oftentimes I find that high performing entrepreneurs and professionals, they don't always listen to. And sometimes they can't hear because the ego is so loud. But that voice is the one that speaks to that higher service that I talked about earlier. And so that's the second dimension. The third dimension is your superpower. We all have one. There's something that we go to in moments of crisis and in moments of great joy that we use to move ourselves through whatever it is that we're going through. With great joy comes great contribution when we're using our superpower. With great crisis comes great resilience. And we use that same superpower to get us away from the corner that we have our backs to. And so we all have that ability. And then the fourth dimension is your fulfillment. How fulfilled are you in your life? And we go through 12 key areas, and I won't go through all that in this. I'll share the world that we play in a little bit. But those 4 dimensions create your character. And with that, you are now fully equipped with the awareness to know how to win the game of your life. And I'm going to give you, so before I go into it, I'm imagining you might be wondering, hey, like, what does any of this have to do with happiness? Well, here's the truth. Happiness is, once again, a fleeting emotion that you can access at any time. Anytime. You can simulate it. You can tap into it through memories. You can go out and create that if you want, but understanding that it's fleeting and it's short-lived, think of it like, I don't know, the first thing that comes to mind is a drug. You know, the more you have it, and it doesn't necessarily have to be, you know, something bad. It could be medicinal, right? It's also drugs at the end of the day. But the more you have it, the more your body gets used to it. So the more it needs in order for it to respond the way that you may want it to. Well, happiness works the same way. Happiness can create dopamine, which then something is, after a while, you become more desensitized to that level of happiness. So then you need to seek more happiness. But here's the thing, because it's fleeting, it becomes this perpetual cycle. And trust me, there are amazing companies out there that know this to a T and are able to market to you in that way to keep feeding you and keep enticing you to chase happiness. So the reason why I'm bringing this up is happiness is not the thing to chase after. It is the thing to feel, which you can access at any given time. The real thing that's going to actually create an air of long-term happiness is fulfillment. And I'm going to give you 4 distinct ways to level up the different worlds that we play in the game of life, and how to do that in a way where you can experience more fulfillment and have that and get one step closer to living that extraordinary life. Now, I'm going to take a pause and just say, you know, I love interacting with people on social media. If you want to reach me and see some of the other content that I create that's not live, you can hit me up. I'm pretty much on everything as the Professional Wingman. So Facebook, here on YouTube, Twitter, I'm at the Pro Wingman. But everywhere else, you can find me there. Check out my content. You can reach out to me, actually me, and we can engage in conversation. Now, before I get into the 4 worlds, I should probably tell you what those 4 worlds are, right? And so, like in any game, there are different areas in which matter to us. And we go through each of these areas probably every single day. The way that the game is set up, we experience some impact in these worlds, some influence in these worlds every single day. Now, whether we're aware of it or we actually contribute to the impact is based on how you live your life. But these 4 worlds are pretty simple. There's the world of purpose, which speaks to your physical, mental, and spiritual fitness. There is the world of play, which is all about the people, places, and experiences that bring you great joy and fun. There's passion, which is all about love of yourself, love of your partner, or the experience of finding one, and love of what I call your neighbor, your community. And lastly, the world of performance, which is about increasing, sharing, and asking for value. And for a lot of my clients, They equate value to money, but it could be resources, it could be mentorship, time, whatever it may be, but value. We all have value that we can also increase and share and give. So how do we level up these four worlds and experience greater fulfillment in our lives? Well, I'm going to give you 4 clear ways and maybe some bonuses along the way to help you along the path. So we're going to tackle the first world of purpose. And this is super important. And I won't get into, the depths of what I believe our purpose here is on this planet. If you want to get into that, we can have a conversation about that. But for right now, I want to focus on something that's super important in everyone's lives, which is physical fitness. The reason why I'm using the phrase physical fitness is because it's different than physical wellness. I think physical wellness now is being used as a way to create a wider spectrum to what being well is. And wellness is a feeling more so than an actual state. Wellness can sometimes not be as measured as fitness can be. And the reason why I'm using the term fitness is because I define fitness as your ability to recover from setback, challenge, or trauma. And so if you're someone who, sorry about that, something popped up. There we go. I don't know why that's happening. 1 second. All right, I think we're back. Anyway, yes. So if you're someone who gets sick a lot or gets injured and not able to recover as quickly as what's considered normal, then chances are you're not fit. And this is, and chances are when you're not fit, you're not feeling well. It's pretty simple in that regard. If you're not fit, chances are you're not feeling well. And so I like to focus on the idea of fitness. And now when you think about fitness from a physical, mental, and spiritual standpoint, then you can kind of see how important it is to be fit across those 3 areas. Now, sorry, guys. Perfect. Had something pop up on my screen. Very annoying. So the importance here is everything starts with physical fitness. Everything. Without physical fitness, there's nothing that you can do, right? In any game, if you have minimal health points, like the chances of you being able to win that game are very minimal. Right? No health points means you don't even play, like you're dead, right? And so it's so important that we start with the physical fitness. And I believe that if you can dial in the physical fitness, that means naturally you're going to be more mentally fit. And on a spiritual level, you will be a conduit, a body that can handle and take on spiritual power that can influence other people. If you're someone who believes in that, I personally do. And I can feel the difference. I would say inarguably, I'm in the best shape that I've been in my 30s, not in my life. I'm getting there. But my ability to hold, energy is profoundly different than how it was 5, 6, 7 years ago. And it started with me taking care of my body. And I'm not going to be giving you a workout plan because there's plenty of information out there about that. But there is significant importance in staying active and moving your body. And from a simple standpoint, physical movement is closely tied to positive emotions. In fact, there were studies that were shown that, taking a 15 to 20-minute walk actually boosts dopamine, serotonin, oxytocin, endorphins, and those are linked to happiness. And so you don't need to have this rigorous workout in order to feel this way. It could just be a simple 20-minute walk. It could be on a treadmill. It could be outside, outdoors. I think that's ideal. Out in nature, even more ideal. But staying active and moving your body, especially when we live in a kind of a hybrid work from home, work at work culture, it's very easy for us to spend 9 to 12 hours sitting at our desk, being totally inactive. And over time, that actually impacts our physical bodies, right? So being able to stay active and move is so key. It seems so simple, but we also now live in a world where, I think in America, the majority of people who are here are considered obese, which is so profound to me. I read that. I'm pretty sure I read it like that. Correct me if I'm wrong in the comments, but I'm pretty sure I read that I think it's officially over 50% of the people in America are obese. And that's not a great recipe for longevity. So if you want to live a fulfilling life, I imagine you want to be able to do that for a long time. So it starts with physical fitness. Now, as we go into the world of play, now, when I say play, I think most people think this is all about fun. And there is fun. I think it's important for people to enjoy the fruits of their labor, especially if you're a high-performing professional. You work really hard and you are successful in your own right. And you get to enjoy yourself too. Make no mistake. Make sure no one tells you otherwise. You get to enjoy the life that you are working very hard for. But while there's some truth to the idea that play is about fun, what I'm also talking about is, and listen, like, I also want to say, like, everyone deserves to have fun, right? I hope that we don't get to argue about this, but I'm going to take it a step further. And I made sure to write this down. The people that you spend the most time with, the places that you go to the most, and the things and the experiences that you enjoy the most are the components of what makes you and your life uniquely yours. And so it's more than just fun. This is about you having a unique experience of your life. And these experiences, these people, these places, these experiences all serve a very important part, which is allowing yourself to be unique and to embrace your individuality. This is super key. And I'm a huge, proponent of the idea that conformity is the opposite of bravery. We now live in a world where it's super polarizing, and being brave sometimes carries significant consequences, especially by people who oppose their views. And I'm not going to jump into that, but it's so important to understand that if you are to be uniquely you must be brave. It's a requirement. And embracing your uniqueness, embracing your individuality, despite the potential criticism, by the potential opposition and the forces that come with that, is a gateway to positive emotions and fulfillment. You will feel significantly better and have a much more improved life being courageous and being uniquely you than it would be trying to be someone else or following the herd, especially if you oppose the views of that. And, we live in a world where, let me rephrase. We live in a country where we're blessed with the freedom of speech. And listen, even having the freedom of speech can carry its consequences, but it is a right that we get to fight for because it's so important. I wouldn't be able to say these things and share this message if not for that. And so you have a message, you have a way to express yourself, you have individual and uniqueness to yourself. Have the courage to be able to do that, and you're going to feel better about that. You're going to feel better about yourself, and you're going to feel better about the life that you lead with that bravery, with that courage. And so while play is about fun, it is also the part that makes your life uniquely yours. And I wanted you to remember that. Third world is passion. There's a lot I can talk about in regards to passion. I feel like there's not enough love in the world. I think there needs to be more expression of love and kindness and compassion and empathy. And so for some of you, maybe this is a time to just reflect on how you've been showing up, not necessarily for other people yet, but for yourself. I remember, back during my dark time and I was struggling and depressed, and I was thinking about life and myself, and I was saying to myself, I don't hate myself. I never did. Never wanted to hurt myself or kill myself. Never thought about that. That was not something that was ever crossed my mind. I knew logically that I loved myself, but I didn't know how. Like, how do I show that I love myself? That was not something that was taught to me. That was not something that I was aware of. I knew how to love others and show that I loved them. That was something that I was familiar with. But how do I show myself love? I had to teach myself that. And my question for you is, when was the last time that you actually showed true, genuine love for yourself? True, genuine love for yourself. And it can look in a myriad of ways. But I'm going to give you some ideas here and ways that I think will level up this world in your life, whether you are married with kids, if you are single, if you're in a relationship, just starting over in transition, whatever that may be. And the first is embodying loving kindness. Being loving and kind to yourself then allows you to do the same for others. And it not only positively impacts your life, but it impacts others. And it becomes this perpetual cycle that contributes to your emotional well-being. When you love yourself, you love on other people. And when you love on other people, it feels really good. And in an interesting way, you're loving on yourself by loving other people through that process. And it just naturally increases your emotional well-being. A very simple example could be, if you were to see someone who was houseless on the street and you gave them $1, or you saw a street performer and you gave them something, like that immediate feeling, you feel good about yourself because of what you've done, but that was also a demonstration of showing love. But you also love yourself for having done that because you're seeing yourself as a kind, compassionate, loving person. So it's just a cycle. And it doesn't matter how it starts. You could start with loving yourself and showing those things, or it could start with loving others. But either way, the cycle does loop and it does enhance your emotional well-being. Second thing is honoring truth and honesty. It goes back to when I talked about being unique and being an individual and living that life. Being honest and being truthful is polarizing in today's world, unfortunately, but it is still what's needed. And living in alignment with your truth and being honest, even in difficult situations, difficult conversations, it's an essential aspect of fulfillment and the positive emotions that come with that. And it's not easy. This requires another level of bravery and courage. But here's something really interesting. With the clients that I've worked with, a lot of my clients' superpower is courage. It is bravery. And having that awareness for them has allowed them to have more of a voice and to express in a way that's built on truth, built on honesty, built on love and kindness and compassion. I remember one of my friends, he's had a really great quote, and he would say, it's always important to be honest and tell the truth. Say what you mean what you say, but don't say it mean. And I totally agree with that. Just because you're saying the truth and someone internalizes that as, pain, as long as you know that you weren't saying it mean, then that's their stuff to deal with, right? And so I think it's really important to understand that embodying truth and honesty, your truth, your honesty, is super important, no matter what that is, and no matter who agrees or disagrees with you. The third thing is appreciating beauty and self-acceptance. This was something that I struggled with. This is probably one of the first things I had actually faced in my journey, and it was a struggle. I could not, or maybe was unwilling to accept myself because I was in a lot of pain. I was struggling, caused harm to myself and others in my behaviors and actions. And I didn't know what to do with that. The shame and the guilt and the resentment, they were all just incredible forces that were holding me down and not willing to see that, like, I'm human just like everyone else who makes mistakes and can make amends for them. And that also turned into my lower self-esteem, not even being able to look at myself in the mirror. And when I did, it was filled with disgust didn't want to look at myself eye to eye in the mirror and be willing to acknowledge the person that I had become, because I didn't want to be that person. I was ashamed of that person. But when I was willing to accept that my actions led to where I was, what it did was it gave me the acceptance, but it also gave me in turn the power and the responsibility to do something about it. I'm totally responsible for becoming the person that I was, but I'm also responsible for the person that I can become. But I had to accept that I got here. I had to accept the responsibility, my part in doing that. Sometimes you hear people say, everything's your fault. I would say everything is not your fault. There are some things in this world that you just don't have control over. That's just the truth. How you respond, it is absolutely your responsibility. And that's what I chose. You know, there were some things I was not aware of in my life about myself, and that's not my fault. But now that I have this awareness, it is definitely my responsibility to be able to do something about it. And so when you get to that ability of self-acceptance, it is a game changer. And that turns into responsibility, and that responsibility turns into power. And that power turns into a level of greater fulfillment, because you now can see the progress of where you accepted in terms of where you were at to the progress that you've made over time. And that experience of fulfillment, I mean, there's nothing like that. And I've had my clients come from very, very dark places. We'll call them bottoms, rock bottoms, if you will. And I've had some clients come in on a complete high, you know, and how they navigated it has been beautiful. But it started with the acceptance of, hey, I brought myself here, but I also have the ability to get myself where I want to go. And the last thing inside of the world of passion I wanted to mention was also this idea of contribution. You've heard me mention it a few times. I think it's so important for us to give and to give and to be of service and to get out of ourselves and get out of our egos and be able to help other people. This is what allows the world to grow and expand and become an amazing place. And, you know, truly fulfilling, you know, our purpose, I believe, truly involves contributing to others and making a difference in their lives. There are lessons that you have learned that where there are people who are going through now. Wouldn't it be cool to help them navigate a situation that is not new to you, and you can provide the path or a path that can make their situation easeful? I personally believe God puts us in a path that allows us to learn things about ourselves and about life so that we can go out and we can help others and we can share that experience. And people get to see the other side, right? We look at the before and after. People love the before and after photos of weight loss transformations. People are very scared to see the in-between. But that is where your value comes in and your ability to contribute and say, hey, like, I know you're still seeing the polished product of what I've gone through, but let me tell you about the bridge that I had to cross and how you can cross that bridge too. It doesn't matter what part of life it is. I think it's just so important to find opportunities to be of service. This is more than just like volunteer work. This is really about being a source of giving, and to think of, I just got hit with a memory of, this was maybe over a decade ago, when I would go out with my clients and they would always ask me, like, how are you so comfortable like talking to strangers and making connections? Part of it was immersion. I think part of it was a big part of it was immersion. I constantly put myself and exposed myself to that environment. But the second thing that I had mentioned was, well, I just love giving value. I love offering value. And the way that I define value could depend on the situation that I'm in. Sometimes my value is just lending an ear and listening. Sometimes my value is providing a joke. Sometimes my value is providing a safe place for someone to fully express themselves and express that uniqueness and individuality. That might not be something that they get access to or have the chance to do that in their lives. And sometimes my value is a hug. Sometimes my value is an encouragement to say, you got this. I believe in you. You're going to be great. And so when I go in leading with giving value, then I know whatever I get in return is what I'm meant to get, but I know I'm leaving that conversation with them, hopefully in a better place than before I got into that conversation. And so just leading with value just has infinite returns in life. And I really suggest that when you are looking at an interaction or about to enter interaction, to ask yourself the question, what value can I give this person today? And it could be a best friend or a stranger, it doesn't matter, or a coworker, it doesn't matter. What value can I give this person today? And you'd be surprised how what you think is like the littlest thing can be the biggest thing for someone else. So that's it for passion. And then lastly, performance. I'm all about continuous growth. I'm all about embracing learning. One of my core values is 1% better every day. If I can dedicate 1% of my day to trying to get 1% better at one particular thing, my life will exponentially get better over time. This is the magic of compound effort. And I find that, learning is just so essential for living a fulfilling life and reinforcing those positive emotions. I remember when my daughter was, 6, 7, 8 months old, and I'd go to the coffee shop and I'd work for half the day and I'd come home. It would almost be like I'm meeting a completely different person. I mean, her development was so fast. And when I'm with her all the time, I don't always see it because I'm with her all the time. But when I take space and I come back, it's incredible. And this would happen repeatedly. And I just asked myself, man, I wish I could learn and develop as quickly as she did today. And then it sparked the question, like, why can't I? Why can't you? Why can't you grow and develop now, today, at whatever age you are? I don't care if you're in your 20s or in your 60s. Why can't you grow the same pace as you once did when you were a little kid? And I think a part of it was natural immersion, constant learning, the willingness to learn, the curiosity, the joy of discovery. These are all things that I feel like have been put dormant. I wouldn't say, left for dead, because I think we all have that in us, but oftentimes it gets suppressed or it's left dormant. And so I reactivated that several years ago, and my life just took off. And when clients come to me, they're looking for the same exact thing. It's not so much about the learning, like going out and seeking knowledge, but they want to learn experientially. They want to go out and they want to do things and they want to learn. And when they do, and they're getting better 1%, over the course of a year, their lives completely take off. And people are wondering, like, what happened? You look unrecognizable to where you were a year ago. Well, that's not just coincidence. That's actually science. Here's an interesting theory around 1% better, right? If you take the number 1 and you put it to the 365th power, the answer is 1. 1 to the power of anything will always be 1. But if you just put 1% on top of that, so 1.01 to the power of 365, I think it comes to somewhere around like 37 to 38. So in theory, if you were to just dedicate yourself to being 1% better at something every single day for a year, you could, in theory, become 37 times better than where you were when you started on day 1. Now, can we really measure that? Can we really track that? I actually have some tools that can argue that, yes, you can. And if that's something that you want to take part in and see how you can track your growth and see how you can elevate your life with your own vision on your own quest along your game of life, go to theprofessionalwingman.com/apply, fill out the application. I'll reach out to you and we can set up a time to have a really, really great conversation about what would it take for you to get to the next level and see if it's a good fit for us to take that journey together. So, this idea of constant growth and learning is super, super important. And I think what ends up happening is at a certain time, we tell ourselves that we don't need to learn anymore. We know all there is that we need to know in order to move through life. but that is the curse of stagnation. Your ego doesn't want to grow because your ego is designed to be complacent. It's designed to help you survive the present moment. And if you're in a growth state, that does not serve your ego. Your ego is scared of growth because things change. It's uncertain. There's no promises. And there might be some ego death. And it's just a lot of a big situation for your ego to withstand. And so it's going to try to talk you out of taking that path. But what it ends up leading you to is stagnation, which is the death of your soul. And you do not want that. It does lead down a path where you can lose yourself, both physically, emotionally, mentally, spiritually, and oftentimes can be led to depression and potentially mental illness. And there was a study that was done. It's almost Anita Katz. I think she's a psychotherapist, a psychiatrist, psychologist, one of those things. She kind of referred it as moral masochism, where you abandon yourself and your freedom of choice, which I think is freedom of growth, thinking that's the right thing to do, but in essence, you're hurting yourself. And that moral masochism can lead to such a low state of depression that it actually can carry on real mental illness. And so this is what's at stake if you're not growing. It's not that you're just being stagnant. It's not like you're just like staying here. There is a dip, right? It's like if you're not exercising, doesn't matter how much you exercise, over the course of the previous year, you don't stay the same shape. You don't sustain the same power. That power dips. Your shape changes and gradually gets worse. So there is no such thing as stagnation. You're either growing or you're getting weaker. And not ideal for you to hear this, but the solution is constantly having that curiosity, that desire to discover new things, to learn new things. Doesn't matter how relevant it is to your life. I think just to work the muscle of learning is something that's going to keep you young and to give that sense of purpose that's going to lead to a fulfilling life. And so there you have it. 4 ways to level up the areas of your life that matters most. And this is something that I work with my clients all the time. Every time we talk, we're looking at these 4 worlds. What's going on in the world of purpose, in play, in passion, in performance? And what are the steps that you're taking? What are the habits that you're putting in? How are you structuring things? How is your vision quest coming along? All questions that are designed to help do one thing, which is help create a measurable journey towards greater fulfillment, impact, and purpose. And so if that's something that you want, I highly recommend you reach out to me, professionalwingman.com/apply, and we can have a great conversation. I really hope you guys enjoyed this. I will put a summary of these things below so you can actually get the cliff notes. And if I have any additional supplemental resources that I want you guys to check out, I'll have links down there below too. But I'd love to hear from you, comments, thoughts, feedback on these 4 things and the idea of happiness and fulfillment. Do you feel like they're the same thing, or do you see that there is a difference? And what was your biggest takeaway? What was the biggest insight that you got from this particular podcast today? I would love to hear it. I appreciate you guys so much. And by the way, I did hear you. I got some feedback from a lot of you guys saying that while these are great to hear you talk about these different things, it would be great to have these conversations with other people. So I've listened, and I will be bringing on people to have interesting conversations about imposter syndrome, being good enough, working through it, the different the games of, the different worlds that we play in regards to the game of life. And they're going to come across various industries. I'm super pumped about it. And I'm super excited to bring some amazing people who have a great message and have that desire to give amazing insight to you guys. So stick around. There'll be some announcements coming soon. But in the meantime, I hope you guys have a great rest of your day. Go out there, live with purpose, and level up your game.